Before I put my plants in the garden, I always like to prep the soil with a little extra garden soil. And what I have in a bag, I have a large bag of vegetable and flowering garden soil, and it has a little bit of the plant food in it. It has some peat moss to keep the soil light, and it also has some regular soil in there. So I'm just going to add that to my soil from last year, in addition to some of the extra plant food that I put in. I'm going to till that in, and it's going to help my soil to be rich and to help my plants to grow a little bit better this year. I'm going to take some of that garden soil and I'm going to till it in just to make sure it mixes a bit with the existing soil from last year. It's kind of like giving the garden soil a vitamin to make it healthy. Put some nutrients in there. Once the ground has all been tilled, I like to take the garden hoe and just level off the ground a little bit to get it ready for planting. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to saturate this with water. We do expect to be getting some rain today, so I'll soak it a little bit with the hose, and then I'll let Mother Nature do the rest. I'm not sure if you can see, but over here I have actually used the tool to make a couple trenches about 18 inches apart. I'm going to be planting a early spring vegetable in there. I've made the trenches go right across the bed. Seraphina's waiting. One of the early plants that you can plant this early in the year, as soon as your soil is ready, is lettuce. So here I have 3 different varieties. I have grown spinach before, never lettuce, so this will be new for me. Here we have an iceberg lettuce, very commonly seen at the markets. This is a buttercrunch lettuce, and these are the seeds for a variety mix. It's a salad blend, which means it's different kinds of lettuces that you typically see in a salad, and those seeds are all mixed. Inside this packet are the seeds for the buttercrunch lettuce, and you can see the seeds are very, very tiny. So it is quite a challenge when you're growing these. If you grow them all too close together, then your lettuces are going to be too condensed, and it's going to be really difficult to tell where they're growing. In the trenches right over here, I am going to take the Select Salad Blend seeds, and just very carefully I'm going to sprinkle them just a little bit in the trench, very lightly. Oops, that was probably a little too much there. Watch out, Sarah. Sarah likes to garden. I'm going to finish the 2 trenches once I can get Sarah to move to another spot. But with the seeds, I just want you to see, I'm just going to go very close. You can see the seeds right in here. There's Sarah. And I'm going to take a little soil and just cover them up very, very lightly, just so that they are not fully exposed to the sun and the water can get to them. The directions for how deep and how far away are often on the seed packets that you buy. And in this area right in the middle, I'm going to plant some of the iceberg lettuce. I'm going to keep about half of the seeds for the fall, because the spring, early spring and fall are the best times. With the cool weather is the best time to plant lettuce and some other cold vegetables like turnip, radishes. Another cold weather plant that I'm going to try for the first time this year, boys and girls, I am learning just like you, are Brussels sprouts. And this is what they look like once you pick them off the stalk. But I'd like you to see the seed. It's very different. The seeds are almost like little peppercorns, but smaller. Okay, these are going to be planted spaced out enough. Again, I have dug a trench, and when I read the directions, it said that they should be planted about 1/4 of an inch deep, which is not deep at all. So I'm just going to sprinkle a little soil over them once I've planted the seeds as well. Another early spring vegetable that I'm going to grow is broccoli. I'm going to grow that in a trench right along the side of the Brussels sprouts. And again, this only requires about 1/4 of an inch of soil underneath, but the directions do say to plant them about an inch apart. So let's see what happens. The broccoli seeds look very much like the Brussels sprout seeds. When you're planting multiple plants in a garden bed, it's very important to mark your vegetables as well. So once I'm finished, I'm going to put little markers in each of the rows so I know what's growing as they start to sprout. You may not realize it, but when you are planting, you are using some math skills. Because I said that with broccoli seeds, they are to be planted about 1 inch apart. And remember, sometimes you're going to plant about 2 or 3 in the spot. You have to just kind of actually you could get a ruler and you could measure and try to see about how far 1 inch is from the other. And you don't have to get the ruler as you're planting the seeds exactly, but just kind of estimate. So you're going to measure to see how far apart an inch is, and then as you're dropping them, you're going to measure about 1 or 2 seeds here, about 1 or 2 seeds here, about 1 or 2 seeds here, and you keep going that way. It also is very good fine motor skills for your hands. The last early spring vegetable that I'm going to grow today is fennel. If you watched the cooking show that I did the other day for the tribute to Stregonona and I made a pasta sauce, you saw that I used the bulb, which is the bottom part of the fennel, in my sauce, and it gives it a wonderful, wonderful flavor. The flavor is not as strong as the seed. So here you can see the fennel seed. I'm going to get very close, so it's going to look much bigger than they actually are. These seeds are also planted only 1/4 inch dusting over the top, but you do compact them, so you're going to press the soil down once you cover it. An important thing that I found out last year is when I was growing fennel last year, the bulb was growing all along the stalk instead of at the bottom. And when I went to cook it, it was very, very tough. It was almost very stringy, like a celery. It was the wrong kind of fennel. So if you are looking for fennel for cooking, if you want that bulb, you're going to look for this sweet Florence fennel. And I only found that out by researching. So let's see what happens this year. When planting the fennel seeds, the directions did say to once they start to grow, and it only takes about 7 to 14 days for the plant to start germinating, which means sprouting out of the ground. So it says once it has started to sprout and it's time to thin the plants, to only to space them about 1 foot apart, because these plants grow very, very tall. So you can see I started, just so that I can tell the difference between one and the other, I started to plant them about 4 inches apart right now so that I can tell once they start to grow, and it'll be much easier to thin them that way than if they are all growing together and entangled. I wanted to show you, this is an earthworm that is in the ground, and earthworms in your garden soil are a wonderful thing because they help to take some of the leaves from the year before and help to turn those leaves, they decompose them and help them to turn into nutrients for the soil. And they also help to loosen the soil. So whenever you see an earthworm in your garden, you should probably smile, because it's a good thing. They help your plants to grow as well. So today we planted all kinds of early spring vegetables, and I planted that in this garden bed right behind me here. I'm going to call that my mystery garden, because all of these vegetables that I am growing in that bed are actually vegetables that I've never grown before. So it's going to be kind of a discovery. It's going to be a mystery to see which ones grow well, which ones don't. But remember, as you're observing your plants grow, whatever kind you're growing, as you do some measuring when you're planting, measuring them as they're growing and tasting them, all of those ways are ways that you're observing using your senses. I was doing a little research for a story that I'm writing about 1940, and when I was doing a research about that, I found out that in the Great Depression, which was right before then, a lot of people grew what they were called victory gardens. And rather than families going into the stores to get fruits and vegetables, almost all of the families would grow vegetable gardens in their homes, in their yards, well, in their homes, but outside of their homes, in their yards, so that they would have fresh fruits and vegetables to eat that they could grow themselves. Along the outer edge of my garden, I have these poles, or these posts, that help to hold my fence. And I did find these Blue Lake pole stringless beans that can be planted early in the year. The directions say to plant them about 1 inch deep along the side of the poles, and to plant about 4 or 5 seeds in each hole. I can show those to you. So I have 5 seeds here. Here was one of the poles that the holes that I dug next to the pole. I'm going to drop these seeds in. You count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The ones that did not make it in, I'm just going to push them in a little bit here with my finger. There's one more here. Make sure Serafina doesn't get it. And I'm going to cover it up before she does. And push on the soil. So it's only buried about 1 inch. I do need to keep those moist, so I'll be watering the garden when we don't have rain to keep the soil wet. And make sure she doesn't dig in it. Right, Serafina? And what's going to happen is the pole beans are actually going to climb up like a vine right up the post in my yard. Not quite as high as Jack and the Beanstalk though. About 4 to 5 feet. My post fence is 4 feet, so once it does get to the top of the fence, it'll probably go to right along the edge.